Corner. Tim, give me three things that you learned.
Publishers don't like speaking in public very much. We learned about, and I'll be flippant as always initially, and then I'll get into the meat of it. We learned about the army of winged monkeys. Okay.
Can you elaborate?
No, you'll have to ask me later. Just leave it hanging there. The army of winged monkeys. We talked about culture. That was the last session, and we decided, or certain members of the room decided, that culture was probably one of the most important things to influence strategy and output of a publisher business, and adapting cultures.
But company culture, or like culture as in art?
We were talking about publisher company culture.
Okay.
We talked about the need for speed and how difficult it is in a prioritization process to innovate and create outputs quickly. And the suggested solution was that you need to step back and take a deep breath and find that luxury of time to make a decision. We talked about finding time is one of their key challenges to do whatever they need to do, whether it's making money, focusing on new product launches. There's not enough hours in the day.
Well, that is true. Time is the most precious of all commodities.
So we covered more than three, so I'm going to give you one more. We talked about the challenges around ad quality and the conundrum of ad blocking as a specific topic which was concerning publishers.
Interesting, because that came up here too. Found out that in Sweden, 25% use ad blockers, and for some sites that are targeting specifically younger audiences, it's probably 50%. And that in reaction, the publishers are kind of hoping the problem goes away.
I didn't get a sense that the publishers were hoping it went away. They were actually, we talked about, and knowing publishers, it will require some alcohol to get it going. We talked about having a working group whilst we're here in Monte Carlo to produce an action plan for how you might resolve it.
Okay, that's because that also came up in the back, was maybe it's time for educating users about, and I don't know if it's an education issue, educating users about what it means to have ad-supported content, which it means having ads. And that there was the notion that the idea that, well, people are using ad blockers because of fear of malware and all these other things is kind of rubbish, and that this is just sort of more of an ideological thing, and that maybe it's time publishers take a stand and say, if you're using an ad blocker, welcome, you can pay, but if you want to have this content for quote-unquote free, the true cost is your attention to ads that are part of the content bundle.
I mean, the publishers seem to feel that this is a big enough issue. It wasn't just the thought of the day to fill the time. We could have run that session for hours, by the way. It was great.
It's interesting. It's interesting too from a U.S. perspective, in that it's not as big of an issue, at least, that U.S. publishers are not as obsessed with ad blocking. I don't know why it is.
We had a mixture. We had geographies from as far afield as Turkey, America, San Francisco. So I think we had a good spread. That sounds like America, doesn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder. Sometimes. That's interesting. How about fraud? I mean, fraud came up here. We heard, from one provider that they had to take a 30% hit on revenue and have an honest discussion both with their board, because typically boards of directors do not like hearing that you're going to take a 30% hit on revenue, and then also an honest conversation with publishers that they're going to take a hit because they are sending crap traffic. Did that come up at all?
No, we didn't talk about fraud, but I think fraud is one of those subjects that you're either switched onto it or you tend to go deaf when you hear the word fraud because you don't want to know about it. Whether that's
like privacy. Privacy is
one of those. It's one of those things that it needs a new word to explain it. Would be my solution, because fraud. Honestly, I reckon the room's split between people who go, "Oh, fraud! I want to go to that session on fraud," to those who would rather go to the pub.
Yeah. I found that privacy was always that discussion. So there's like certain people that really, really wanted to talk about, EU privacy directives and various other PII, non-PII, and then other people who are like, don't we have some lawyer or something like this that can?
Well, we have a lawyer in the room who can solve all your privacy issues, Simon. Okay. And seriously, I mean, Lewis Silkin, who AOP use as our legal partner, Simon's team spend an awful lot of time with publishers talking about the heavy lifting of privacy and the legal issues behind publishing. So it's going on in the background and at vast expense, I'm sure, at Lewis Silkin, but it's a good investment from the publishers to have a really clear handle on that.
So what's one issue that did not come up in the town hall that should really truly be discussed in the true town hall at the bar over 14 euro beers later? It has to be an important issue because these beers are very expensive.
For my interpretation, and please those in the room tell me that I'm just making this up, I got a sense that it was about that time challenge, that everybody's almost too busy to do the core business as well as innovate all in the same day. And it's finding that valuable time to do the planning and the thinking. I certainly, in my days as a publisher, that was probably my daily challenge, was to find that headspace to go and have a decent conversation with somebody over an issue you were grappling with, rather than just be, what is that horrible expression? I forget it, but back-to-back meetings. Thankfully, I don't have that anymore, but most of you guys have back-to-back diaries, stretching, weeks into advance. There's no space to go and collect your dry cleaning or whatever you need to do. And I think it's holding back the publishers.
Okay, and that's a good native advertisement for our conferences, which are meant to have that space. Tim, thank you very much. Thank you for leading it. Thank you for your contributions.
One thing, and I just wanted to say to Digiday, thank you for having us all, but also more of those sessions was a sort of a feeling in the room, where the publishers can speak to each other.
Agreed. Okay. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be here. My name is Dan Martin. I lead the publishing-facing business for Triple Lift. And in preparation for today, I thought it would be fun to share our founding story. Founding stories, I believe, reveal a company's DNA and help to shed some perspective relative to what drives us as a company on our mission on a daily basis. And it's an interesting story, one I think you'll appreciate, and will definitely shed some light into what we're thinking about when we work with our publishing partners. So Triple Lift, our three founders were originally from a company called AppNexus back in the early days. And for those of you that may not be familiar with AppNexus is one of the leading programmatic buying and selling platforms on the web. And of the three founders, two of them were the actual technical architects of the AppNexus platform itself. The third founder was the head of sales. And back in 2011, it was around the first quarter, the head of sales, Ari, gets a call from his number one retail client. And she says, I need to speak to you right away. We need to review the Q4 numbers. And Ari says, sure, what's up? And she says, last quarter, 7% of all of my sales came from one destination on the web. And he says, wow, that's impressive. How much did you spend with them? She says, I didn't spend anything. Well, in Ari's mind, he's thinking, my client spends hundreds of thousands of dollars with me a month, millions last quarter, driving 2 to 3% of this client's sales. Something must be up. And she says, can I show you this site? You have to see this site. He says, absolutely. I have my browser up. What's the name of the site? And the site was Pinterest. He pulls up Pinterest. Here's this beautifully, visually designed destination with all of these wonderful products to discover. And light bulb moment goes off, founding moment in Ari's mind. Here he is with access to the most intelligent rocket scientists in the world optimizing his client's media spend. And he's eking out 2 to 3% at best for his client. And this site comes along with this visual design and blows it out of the water for nothing. Something's awry. And so he thought, well, what are the constants here? The constants are that programmatic advertising is without question efficient for marketers. It's a lot easier, it's less manual, we know the value prop. The challenge and the opportunity was on the front end of this equation, meaning what's actually being delivered that isn't resonating with consumers. Spoiler alert, it's not the banner. So Ari took the two smartest people he knew at the company, Eric and Sean, the technical founders, and Triple Lift was born on our mission to improve this equation. We're in the midst of a fundamental change with how we consume information on the web, in that the web is effectively undergoing a redesign, in that text is being substituted for images. Hearst, Time, Condé Nast. I'm sure every one of you in this room, in one way, shape, or form, have undergone a redesign in the last 24 months that's highly visual, maybe undergoing it now, to become highly visual. The social networks that we enjoy, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, 140 characters of text, make room for images. Here comes the video in your feed. Snapchat, same thing, all image-driven. So the question's why? Why are images leading the way? And the answer is that images emit emotion. Images tell stories. So then the question becomes, well, how? How, if you're an advertiser in this new visual dynamic, do you engage with consumers that are ignoring banners and actually achieve your objectives? Well, the answer is some advertisers have become publishers themselves. For instance, Purina Nestle actually produces around 1,500 pieces of content a day across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Another good example is Lowe's, is a major retailer back in the US, home improvement destination, that has the most popular website for do-it-yourself improvement on the web using highly visual content. So now the question is, how do you, the publisher, engage your audience in this new world order of the visual web? Well, we've built the technology at Triple Lift, and I'm excited to share a little bit about how we work with publishers to unlock this value. So we work with publishers in two ways. Number one, we enable you to customize the look and feel of how advertising is actually delivered with your environment. Why should you be handcuffed by a 300 by 250 or 300 by 600 standard in a world that is simply either ignoring them, maybe ad blocking them? It's just not a complementary experience for a user, and there's an absolute better way. So what we've actually enabled is the opportunity for publishers to enable your sales force to beautifully integrate your advertisers' content into your experience. And we unlock this using three assets: an image, caption, and a link. And we'll speak a little bit more about why those assets are important later on. But in terms of those three assets, scaling them across custom placements is very difficult to do. As publishers, what we found in the US is that scaling one image across multiple custom shapes and sizes is very difficult to do. The challenge is cropping. It's very difficult to crop an image with someone's head without cutting it off if it's actually a short height, or losing the automobile when it's a narrow image. And what we've created at Triple Lift is that our platform is powered by a very powerful technology called computer vision, which enables one image to identify the focal point and the edge points of that image itself, and then dynamically crop over the multiple custom placements that you've created to render the most beautiful version of that image across devices. So that's number one, is that we're actually enabling publishers to customize the advertising experience and then deliver it at scale for their advertisers. So that's number one. Number two, we're unlocking incremental material revenue through our programmatic exchange. What does that mean? Well, we are the only company that is currently integrated with every major DSP an agency trade desk on the market. So you as the publisher could call AppNexus, call MediaMath, Turn, and unlock their brand's advertising into your beautifully integrated custom placements that are blowing away the performance of your banners. And your consumers and your audience are actually enjoying the experience. Now about those assets. You have an image, caption, and a link. This currency is the future currency of how the majority of advertising is going to be built going forward. Why? Because you think about the most powerful native advertising supply on the planet, and it's a little site called Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They're all powered in their advertising by an image, caption, and a link. So think about the value that you could provide a brand if you could beautifully integrate the assets that they're already using into your custom experience. Paint your own canvas, and your audience will thank you. We work with 500 publishers across 1,000 sites in the US to power this exchange, and we work with some of the largest brands in the world, Viacom, XO Group, and The Atlantic, to name a few, that are leveraging our ad-serving technology. So in this new world order of the visual web, how do you, the publisher, create inspiring, complementary experiences for your audience? Experiences that unlock value for your advertisers that are custom to your world. Well, we've built the technology at Triple Lift. I'm excited to be here and introducing it to you, and love to continue the conversation with you later today. Thank you.